Hi, this is Seid with Cascadia Workshops. I've dedicated my life to working with people who have a dual commitment, both to contributing to making the world a better place than they found it, and who are committed to their own personal growth and development. My goal is to help you become the most powerful change agent you can possibly be. Now, if you've been following my work for a little while, you might remember a story that I've told in a few different places of this incredible opportunity that I had in my late 20s to take some time off of paid employment. In fact, that time period became 7 years. I had 7 years where I didn't have to do anything for money between the ages of 28 and 35. And I was a full-time seminar junkie. I took every class, workshop, seminar that I could get my hands on that had to do with what are the highest caliber tools, processes, and methodologies for us to be able to make a difference and also continue to learn and grow in the process. So now I'm here to report my findings, and in fact, one of the things I discovered during that time is that I have a facility for getting in front of other people and presenting information. And as I integrated these different tools and methodologies, I expanded the range of what I was able to offer. So the money work, which this is a piece of, in fact, we're going to talk about the relationship between money and happiness, and is there a relationship, and what is the relationship? Because there is a relationship, but there also isn't, and it's very confusing. So we're going to talk about that. That particular methodology around money was actually the first workshop I started teaching in the early 90s, and it's a class that I'm rolling out online. Again, I'm calling it Black Belt Money Skills. And Your Money or Your Life was the book that actually became a bestseller and popularized this particular tool, which I learned from the creator of it himself, Joe Dominguez. Vicki Robin is the other co-author of the book, Your Money or Your Life. So there are basically two conditions that kind of guarantee that every one of us is at least a little bit screwed up around money. One of those conditions is that there's no consistent early childhood education around money. Every one of us has a different story. Maybe we didn't see mommy or daddy very much as kids, and it had something to do with money. Or maybe we always had more than enough, and when we saw people who didn't, we felt guilty about it. Or maybe we were always told, sorry, we can't afford that. Sorry, you can't have that because we don't have the money. And then later, as grown-ups, we would splurge on ourselves to make up for that sense of lack. So again, every one of us has a different story, and there's no consistent early childhood education about money. The other condition that guarantees that every one of us has some baggage around money, and again, we want to separate the baggage from the luggage. The other condition is this: the culture itself is extremely confused and confusing when it comes to money. Think about the cliches, just the cultural expressions that we have. Money makes the world go round, but on the other hand, love of money is the root of all evil. And yet, cash is king, but money can't buy me love. So again, very confused and very confusing. You think about how many people can read the little numbers in the financial section of any newspaper, and the percentage of people who know how to read that is very, very, very minuscule. So again, the culture is confused and confusing, and our early childhood education is very inconsistent. So every one of us has some form of confusion in relation to money. Now this particular piece, talking about the relationship between money and happiness, I'll just draw a simple graph, and we call this the fulfillment curve. The reason it's called the fulfillment curve is because on this axis is happiness, satisfaction. Not a fleeting, momentary happiness, but really that sense of fulfillment. Now on this axis is money spent or resources consumed. And so we'll put that here, money spent. I think I moved my whiteboard a little bit. There we go. As we explore this particular relationship, what we notice is that right here, at the survival level, it takes a relatively small amount of money spent proportionate to the fulfillment that it offers. An example would be a baby. They cry, they get a little blanket, or they get mommy's breast or a bottle, and the fulfillment proportionate to money spent or resources consumed is very high. What I want you to notice as I go through this graph is the ratio at these different stages. Another example, and some people watching this are probably aware that I grew up in Mexico. And I've spent time with people, I have dear friends who have very, very little. And the difference between people who have a roof on their heads and enough food to eat and the people who don't is a huge difference. And yet, we could probably feed, clothe, and house everybody on the planet for a relatively small amount of money spent. And the fulfillment is huge. So that's at the survival level. Now let's keep going, let's keep following this graph, and what we notice is that at this next stage, I'm going to call this spot here comforts. There's still a significant amount of fulfillment in relation to money spent or resources consumed. And as we keep going up, think about your first doll or your first thing to play music on, or you name it. I've got subscribers in over 40 countries, and it's going to be different culture to culture, but we all have an idea of the difference between survival and comforts. Now, as we keep going, what we notice is that the curve starts to flatten out. And we're going to call this zone here luxuries. Notice the ratio. It takes a lot more money spent or resources consumed to create a little bit more fulfillment. Now, what happens is that we're so trained, we're so conditioned from a very young age to have this understanding that something from the outside will bring me fulfillment. Something from the outside will bring me fulfillment. Spend money, get some 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 fulfillment. And then the curve starts to go down. And we wonder what's going on. Maybe it's something wrong with me. Maybe I'll just spend more money to figure out what's wrong with me. Something's not working. I'll just buy a whole new wardrobe. I'll just spend more money. Oh no, I need another trip. And this just keeps going down. Fulfillment is now going down. More money spent, less fulfillment. And rest in peace. Sometimes that's the only time peace will come. So this here, this whole zone has another name, and that is clutter. C-L-U-T-T-E-R. So clutter is not just things that are sitting around that you don't use. That's clutter, but also meaningless activities and purposeless conversations are clutter in my life. So the piece that people so often miss, and it doesn't have to be here, it could be anywhere in here. Enough. That's the peak of the fulfillment curve. That means more money spent will not create more fulfillment. So the peak of the fulfillment curve, notice I don't have any numbers here. And that's because it's a very unique and personal thing. For each person, that number is different. But you can identify that number. You can numerically, you can define what is enough for you. And that's one of the things that we'll be discussing in the Black Belt Money Skills program. This is, again, just one teeny piece of it. So there is another part to this, because this is actually the old roadmap. This is the old paradigm. And what we do in the Financial Integrity program, which I'm rolling out in the Black Belt Money Skills course, is how to identify for yourself what is enough. And each person gets to define that for themselves. So part 2 of this, which is the new paradigm, I'll describe right now. How do we get fulfillment to go through the roof without necessarily spending more money or consuming more resources? And it goes like this. Right here, anywhere that you feel comfortable. See, I think there are certain luxuries that the earth can afford for all humans, but we're not talking about, ostentatious, over-the-top luxuries, but very simple luxuries. Like, for me, just a little tiny square of organic chocolate is a luxury. I love it. But again, that's what I'm talking about. This is defined very individually. It's a very personal definition of what these things mean. For some people, their car is survival because that's the only way they know or are able to get to work. So again, these are very personal to you. So here we have fulfillment going up and money spent, resources consumed, not necessarily growing that much. Now this particular section, I'll use a different color. I'll stick to the same color. We're going to call it participation or service. Essentially, being part of something larger than yourself. When you're able to really dedicate your time and your life to making your biggest contribution and to making a difference, that is huge. And yes, you can offer your contribution from anywhere in here. And if your survival needs are met, and if you have what you need to live a comfortable life, you can actually free up more of your time to participate and be of service. And we'll be talking about that in the Black Belt Money Skills program. So if you're watching this video anywhere other than the Cascadia Workshops blog, I invite you to head on over there because I'll have a handout underneath this video that describes the fulfillment curve, and I'll have slightly nicer graphs than what I've drawn here. And we'll have links also for you to check out the Black Belt Money Skills program. Please add comments, ask me your questions. I would love to interact and have a conversation, and I'm curious whether this was useful to you or not. I hope that you have a great rest of your day, and keep putting yourself out there, keep sharing your positive juju with the world, keep sharing your magic, keep doing your art. I had a very interesting conversation with one of my coaching clients this morning, and in fact, you can find some blog posts about this also on the Cascadia Workshops blog. One of the things that happens is, physiologically, we have 3 brains. We have the cerebral cortex, which surrounds the paleomammalian brain, and you can look all of this stuff up. The paleomammalian brain is the brain that we share with dogs and horses, very rudimentary emotions, and then there's the reptilian brainstem is underneath that. So that's the lizard brain. That's the limbic system. There's a voice that comes from that part of our brain that says, hide out, play small, don't take any risks, don't put yourself out there. And if you give in to that voice, you'll end up playing small. And when you're on your deathbed, you're going to look back at your life and you're going to think, I didn't go for it. I wasted it. I don't want that for you. So what I've done is I've completely reframed that voice. Now, when that part of me that usually says, play small, hide out, and just as a sidebar here, that part of us made a lot of sense when you could step out of your door and a saber-toothed tiger could eat you up. I mean, it made sense from an evolutionary perspective that there were times when we needed to hide out to be safe. Now, it's completely different. So going back to my point, when that voice inside me is freaking out, I know that I'm on the right track. So I want you to continue to be willing to take imperfect action, keep putting yourself out there. I'll share another video with some other cool information from the Black Belt Money Skills, Your Money or Your Life course. And please send me your comments or questions, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks.